The Carnival of Rust. Vincent. It is time for our deeds to match our words. We will aid our Urizen siblings. The eastern sky will make a forced march into Zenith and purge the Druj from their homes. Azanath, General of the Granite Pillar. I am Azanath, daughter of Esther, sister of Ruth, and General of the Granite Pillar. I call upon my sisters, brothers, and siblings of the First Army of the Highborn to join me in virtuous crusade. The Druj bring their foul stench of miasma, but you will march through the Three Watchers alongside the miracle of Asher. With bells and swords we will liberate land, people and souls, in virtue, for Highguard, for Urizen, and for victory. Cuth of the Shattered Tower, General of the Seventh Wave. Highborn, we launch our crusade, united as one. We fight alongside our siblings from the Pillar and the Pegasus. We fight alongside our Urizeni neighbours to begin the liberation of Zenith. Tear down all the Druj have built, take their lives, and take them and their pillars down. Look at the Watchers. Remember what they stand for. Remember what we fight for. Death to the Druj. Lucifer, of the cohort of the Winter Bear, General of the Valiant Pegasus. When the Highborn armies are of one mind, it is with loyalty and wisdom that we three, the Seventh Wave, the Granite Pillar, and the Valiant Pegasus, will virtuous crusade into Zenith to aid our Urizen allies. With the virtuous we will withstand the poisonous Druj miasma and bring death to the Druj. With virtues we march, with loyalty and our Urizeni allies, travelling under the gaze of the Watchers we travel. We are bolstered, and our determination is strengthened. General Barossa, General of the Wolves of War. Don heavy armour, my wolves, and hire the toughest bravos of all our cities. We drive like a wedge to the Druj, and we will shrug off their arrows and spears. Listen to your priests and stay strong against the miasma. Steel will guard your bodies. Virtue will guard your souls. Pavel Denisovich Patriu, General of the Iron Helms. Soldiers of the Helms, you are my pride, I am your wisdom. We are going back to Zenith. We march with the magic and Sentinels of the Guard, with the crusading might of the Highborn, and the strength and determination of Varushkan steel. The beasts of Malum will not hold us again. Drive them from the peaks and fields and back to their holes. Nikasa Avisia of Phoenix Reach, General of the Citadel Guard. Soldiers of the Citadel Guard, sentinels and sword scholars all, we march again with our allies. We march beneath the gaze of the Three Watchers. We march with virtue to retake Zenith. We need to banish the Druj. We need to heal the hate in the hearts of our people. The Highborn will terrify the Druj this season. By the power of autumn, we will confound them the next. For the future of our nation and our army, make me proud. Dark disquiet. Down again, through the passes of southern Calais. Down again, past the mute stone gaze of the Three Watchers. Down again into the accursed battlefield of Zenith. Down go the Citadel Guard, and the Wolves of War, and the Iron Helms, as they did last season. This season, the Tower Jacks and the Northern Eagle do not go with them. They have withdrawn to Cassinia to recover from the cruel wounds suffered at the hands of the Orcs. In their place come the three armies of Highguard, back into Zenith again. Back to make war against the Druj again. Back to the place where so many of their comrades fell, defending the people of Urizen again. 6 armies then. But almost at the last moment, almost at the moment when the horns are sounded to mark the advance, a 7th army arrives. Moving with preternatural surety, the Dornish arrive. The eastern sky, fresh from rooting out the Druj in the marshes of Holberg, bound and boosted by the most potent enchantment of autumn magic, they have marched all the way through Semaholm, Astolat, Cassinia, Bastion and Morrow to join the liberation of Zenith. The best path indeed. A ragged cheer goes up as they arrive, showing barely any sign of tiredness. The Eastern Sky are not the only army showing the marks of a powerful Imperial enchantment. Both the Granite Pillar and the Seventh Wave fight with absolute clarity, each strategic and each tactical decision resonant with the masterful focus of the day magic that infuses every soldier in each army. The Wolves of War are supported by nearly 10,000 warbands from across the Empire, bound as always into the most efficient fighting force possible by the continuing power of their common cause. This season they have recruited several entire free companies from Holberg and Temeshwar, whose heavy armour and black humid determinism lend the League soldiers and their allies in a grinding advance. Beside the Citadel Guard and the Iron Helms march allies of a less wholesome nature. Cold, dead flesh has been quickened. 2,000 corpses, uninspired by the gaze of the Three Watchers, unmoved by the crushing Druj miasma. There is a restlessness about them, though. The winter spirits that inhabit the corpses of dead Imperial soldiers and dead Druj warriors know that their bondage is coming to an end. Soon they will be free. 2,000 freed spirits under the dark clouds of Zenith. The heavens open as the Empire's fine soldiers flow down through the pass into Zenith. The rain is unseasonably warm, the thick droplets bursting with a kind of corrupt vitality. The springs and streams that pour down the mountainsides are slick with unwholesome fecundity. The whole territory is infused with the unwholesome health brought by rivers of life. The wicked miasma still holds the land in its crushing grip, breeding fear and despair in any who might think to oppose the Druj. It is harsh enough for those forced to bow their heads to their orc masters. How much worse must it be for those who actively work against them, who intend to drive them back into the Sarin grave? Dreaming wide awake. The first few tentative engagements with the enemy end in conclusive victory for the Empire. They reclaim the base camps abandoned last season and begin to spread south, east, and west in earnest. Almost immediately it becomes clear the Druj are prepared to defend their territory. They must have been expecting the Empire to come again after last season. The Orc forces are hunkered down, exploiting their defensive possessions. No suggestion of clever traps this time. Instead, they focus on keeping the Imperial forces pinned up in the foothills of northern Clypron, punishing them whenever they attempt to press south. The Druj strategy is clearly being set by the Orcs under the ant banner of the White Lion. Their warriors appear everywhere. They anticipate the Empire's advance and move to stifle it. The Hidden Snake employ hit-and-run tactics, using hidden paths through the hills to strike without warning, sabotaging supply trains, blocking mountain paths and collapsing bridges before melting away when Imperial troops try to engage them. When the Druj lose an engagement, they quickly fall back, regroup, resupply, and then return again in a different place. Scouts report several well-defended camps well behind the Druj lines, marked by banners bearing a crimson lizard, where physics and people exploit the spring magic that runs wild in the territory to heal injured warriors and drive them back to the fray again. Scouts also report something potentially more worrying. The Orcs of the Tainted Basilisk seem barely engaged in their defense of Zenith. Their Vicad provide a little support, especially when the other armies are facing the Citadel Guard, but for the most part they seem preoccupied. A small contingent of the 7th Wave Unconquered work with the Sentinels of the Citadel Guard to try and find out what they're up to. They never quite get to the bottom of it, but they are able to discover the Druj magicians are focused on gathering magical resources, especially in those regions already bound by Protective Night and Spring magic. Primarily harvesting mana sites, gathering ambergelt and Beggar's Lie, and even securing small amounts of Ilium. Why they are consolidating their arcane power in this way, though, that remains to be seen. The spring magic in the territory preserves life on both sides, but there are worse fates than death. Where possible, the Druj seek to capture Imperial soldiers alive rather than just kill them. Those who fall into their hands are mercilessly, cruelly tormented, as the Orcs yet again employ their wicked tactic of trying to lure the soldiers' friends into unwise rescue attempts. Yet even the healing power of rivers of life cannot prevent those with no other recourse from embracing the oblivion offered by Kalia's gift, and the Druj frustration that they are repeatedly denied their sport is palpable. While most of the fighting takes place in Clypron, the centre of Druj power is in the east, in the magically defended regions of Procaris and Lustry. The marshes of central Zenith swallow the far-reaching scouts that press that far, and There is scattered news that the forests of Lustri are alive with hungry shadows and the gleam of emerald eyes of many-legged defenders. Standard strategy for the Druge to use spring magic and night magic to bring deadly forces to occupy wild wastelands. Though Clyperon itself is barely more than a wasteland, it seems there are few intact spires remaining here. Merely haunted ruins where Arisen communities once studied and worked together, in pursuit of their own particular brand of enlightenment. Between Imperial liberation and Druge depredation, there are no people here to speak of. Or rather, there are no living people. Fragile. Roughly a month after the Imperial forces enter Zenith, a contingent of the Iron Helms is securing a ruined tower in the southwestern lowlands. The 50 or so Druge warriors defending the place have been shown no mercy, as is the wont of the Varushkan Salactor. Suddenly all of the rangy hounds that fight alongside the Helms turn their muzzles to the sky and begin to howl a terrible warning. Minutes later, the first Arisen Sentinels are seen. Momentarily mistaken for allies, it becomes clear they are something else entirely. Their armour is twisted and marked with rust, their robes splattered with blood and filth, and in their eyes burns a terrible, angry, hateful fire. Where once they were staunch defenders of Arisen, now they are twisted abominations. They are tormented spirits trapped in emaciated, unliving flesh. There are perhaps 30 of them, and they sweep down on the Varushkan soldiers like wolves, wielding terrible blades and spears infused with dark magic. The Iron Helms are forced to retreat, leaving a dozen wolfhounds and half again as many soldiers behind them. If not for the benefit of the healing waters, there would have been twice that many casualties. After this first engagement, these cursed Sentinels appear in engagement after engagement. They seem filled with implacable hatred, especially for their former comrades of the Citadel Guard. While most are Sentinels, there are a notable number of sword scholars, recognizable among their number, and reports of a few handful of former Arisen warrior wizards who bring to bear their potent battle magic against the Imperials. There's little coordination between these groups of unliving warriors. It seems the Druge have no greater strategy than to turn them loose and let their hatred consume them. They are powerful, but they seem disinterested in using the more complex tactics known to true Sentinels. Unfortunately, like the similar abominations encountered in the Rykos and the former Knights of Dawn encountered in the north, they refuse to stay dead unless their spirits are freed through exorcism, and only the Highborn armies have sufficient warrior priests among their numbers to be able to bring their ceremonial power to bear, and doing so is no simple task. Only a handful of these cursed Sentinels are truly accounted for in the months before the spring equinox. Yet for all their wickedness, their dark magic, their corrupted unliving abominations, and their cruelty, the Druge cannot hold back against the Empire. Not this time. Slowly, step by step, the Orcs are forced back. The Highborn armies in particular are a crusading storm, crushing the Druge that try to oppose them in engagement after engagement. They pay for their zeal. Even with the rivers of life, their casualties are high, but the unrelenting spite of the Druge quails before their ambition, their courage, and their unquenchable fury. By the time the spring equinox is in sight, the Empire has conquered roughly half of Clypeon and is well on their way to establishing a beachhead. And with the Druge in disarray, retreating in the face of determined invaders, withdrawing to defensive positions, digging in and forced to accept that this time the Empire will not be forced back into Morrow. The Citadel Guard strike. Temple of Thought. For 3 months, the magicians of the Arisen army have been pressing the Druge in ways that, to an outsider, might seem random or uncoordinated. A sudden strike against a ruined spire here, an expedition into a limestone grotto there, a risky raid to the shores of the Perseus Marches, a lightning assault against a Red Lizard hospital camp, both ending in the Arisen retreating as their defenders rally. Yet, to an observer with the right viewpoint, a viewpoint high above the territory perhaps, there is a shape to these seemingly unrelated actions, a pattern that becomes clearer once one knows the significance of that spire, that grotto, that marsh ruin, and the soldiers in that camp. The Citadel Guard are working a potent spell, and with their technique enacted, their magic gathered, they unleash their power across Zenith. Autumn magic uncoils from the Regio, coils around the Druge, and twists the very fabric of fortune and synchronicity in 1,000 little ways. Chains of command rupture, logistics begin to unravel, supplies are misassigned or mislaid. Messages become garbled. The ability of the Druge armies to act is corroded and undermined, and their strategy begins to collapse. The glass labyrinth is raised, a potent charm that means those Ark armies that have fought in Zenith this season are trapped within walls of malign serendipity and targeted confusion. No matter what else they do, the Druge armies will struggle to marshal their forces to move out of Zenith following the imposition of this metaphorical maze. While they may be able to get out of Zenith, it will take all of their limited discipline to do so, and they will certainly be able to reach no further than one of the adjacent territories. Last season the Empire nearly fell into a cunning Druge trap. This season the Druge have fallen afoul of a much more subtle trap, laid for them by the magicians of the Citadel Guard. Game information. The Empire is roughly halfway towards conquering Cyclone and establishing a beachhead in Zenith. If they do establish a beachhead here, they will cut Eteri off from the rest of the territory, and it'll be harder for the Druge to defend it. There is a Druge miasma covering Zenith, which weakens the Imperial ability to claim territory. In addition to that, Zenith as a whole has gained the terrorized quality. The tormented spirits that the Druge have created from Sentinels and a handful of Highborn captives are using their supernatural strength to slaughter the weak and harry the beleaguered. As a consequence, while this quality is in play, any Imperial army in Zenith that drops to 1,500 strength, or 2,250 if large, will disband. During the recent campaign season, the Druge were keeping their Sentinels on a short leash, exploring their potential. Now they've unleashed them, and the full effect of these supernatural horrors is being felt. The only way to permanently remove the quality would be to deal with the threat presented by the tormented souls, which will require an opportunity, most likely a battle. The Rivers of Life curse, placed by the Druge, has been in effect this season. It is estimated that Imperial forces suffered around 1,500 casualties. It's difficult to say how many Druge have been slain, but it's likely to be the same rough ballpark. Both quickening cold meat enchantments have ended. As with multiple previous incidents, this means there are now 2,000 winter spirits capable of possessing courses in Zenith, who hate everyone and everything. Late goodbye. Battle opportunity. One of the challenges that needs to be overcome in any territory where the Druge have been entrenched is the atmosphere of fear they cultivate. Anchored by twisted pillars, with the miasma inspires fear and despair in anyone who is not a Druge. During the winter solstice, there was an opportunity to deal with the central piers in Clypion, and the prognosticators indicate that there is still a conjunction that will open to that area during the spring equinox. Their presence has certainly impeded the Imperial advance in the hills of central Zenith over the last 3 months. It's far too late to stop Carvor Ipeel, the Burak Tapal, believed to be responsible for the creation of the twisted Urizen Sentinels that have been encountered in Zenith this season. There is still, however, an opportunity to deal with the clustered miasma pillars, the bulwark of Lutum. This time, however, such an attempt receives unexpected support. Following a meeting with some Imperial generals during the winter solstice, the Eternal Zakalwe has offered his assistance to deal with the miasma pillars in Clypion. If the military council decides to go after the miasma pillars, the master strategist plans to send certain specialist heralds to support them. The Myrmidons are insect-like creatures of the Day Realm who until recently were on the verge of extinction. The Urizen help them to recover their strength and receive the patronage of Zakalwe, and they are keen to repay the debt if they can. That Urizen arguably faces an existential threat in the form of the Druge means that this is an ideal time for them to return the favour. Zakalwe explains that whilst the Myrmidons are adept warriors, it is not their battlefield acumen that will help the Empire in Clypidon. Rather, it is their unique ability to communicate instantly with each other over large distances. One of the biggest tactical challenges that need to be overcome when dealing with a cluster of miasma pillars is the way the foul power that infuses them resonates back and forth. If the pillars are not dealt with roughly simultaneously, they repair themselves completely. 3 Myrmidons will meet the Imperial heroes in Clypion and will accompany the forces sent to deal with each of the 3 pillars. Their ability to communicate means that the magicians performing the chimes of an annulment can coordinate their rituals much more effectively. Furthermore, Zakalwe will equip the Myrmidons with enchantments that mean they will be able to hold the note. It's not entirely clear what this means magically, but the explanation is that rather than having to complete the rituals within a minute of each other, there will be a larger window of 5 full minutes between the completion of one ritual and the completion of the others. Unfortunately, to take advantage of this opportunity for a wider window, the Empire will have to use the ritual. Zakalwe seems unable to provide the same window of opportunity to groups using consecration. While the Myrmidons are competent fighters, the main advantage they bring is their ability to communicate freely with each other over long distance. With their assistance, the rites to destroy the 3 pillars can be much more easily coordinated. They are keen to repay the debt they feel to the Urizen and accept the risks presented by the battle. Zakalwe, however, takes his responsibility as their protector more seriously. If they all make it back safely, then it is likely the Eternal will be keen to offer their aid again in Zenith. If more than one of them is destroyed on the battlefield, Zakalwe will not put them at further risk. It will still be a challenge. There are plenty of Druge defenders in the area, and they can be expected to fight to the last in order to protect the pillars, but it is possible that Zakalwe's aid might make this challenge more surmountable. Yet the Eternal's aid is not the only consideration here. As part of their grand working in Zenith this season, some of the diviners of the Citadel Guard have been able to get a slightly closer look at the area. They are confident that if the pillars of Cyclon are destroyed, the miasma over Italy will also collapse. Furthermore, they're certain that if the pillars are taken down, it will be at least a year before the Druge are able to restore the miasma over the 2 western regions. It will endure in Proceres, Lustri, and Accursion, at least for the time being, but Cyclon and Eteri will be significantly easier to conquer than they would be under a full-strength miasma of terror. Finally, there is the matter of the tormented spirits, especially the twisted Urizen Sentinels. The Highborn armies in particular seem keen to face down and free those the Druge who are trapped in tortured state between life and death and bound to their malign will. Some of these soldiers remember the battles in Rykos and know firsthand the horror that these enslaved Urizini are experiencing in that unspeakable state. The Unconquered of the 7th Wave report that there are 5 unique tormented souls in the vicinity of the bulwark at Lutum. 2 accursed Sentinels, Tiberia and Gaiu of the Arch of the Sky, were inseparable siblings in life who fell into the hands of the Druge when they conquered Proceres. Now, in death, they seem to be equally inseparable, and in place of profound loyalty to the nation of Urizen, they now seem to take twisted pleasure in slaughtering other Sentinels, not that they allow their poise to slip and show that joy to anyone they do not intend to kill. And then there is Aurelie Major, a respected battle mage and talented practitioner of winter magic. Deadly with staff and spell, they have made a point of targeting healers and support magicians, and is known to take frequent use of the most powerful winter enchantment that they can acquire. Finally, there are perhaps the most tragic of all, Issa and Bacca of Hychalcis. Torn apart by the fighting in Rykos, reunited, wed, and joined the valiant Pegasus to fight against the Druge. They were lost together during the final retreat from Zenith, believed slain, but now it seems a much more horrific fate. Now they are enslaved by the Druge they despise, their every moment an exquisite form of torture. One is a cataphract, the other an unconquered, and they will certainly fight together. These 5 are by no means the only tormented souls in Zenith, but they are the key figures in the Druge plan to terrorize the Imperial armies in Zenith. If at least 3 of them are neutralized, it will cause the scheme to falter for a season, and may make it easier to secure an opportunity to deal with the situation more permanently. It won't be enough merely to defeat them. They will need to be exorcised so their spirits can be freed. Priests in Highguard and Urizen look to the High Exorcist office for inspiration. While there's no expectation that the High Exorcist would need to accompany the Imperial heroes going to Zenith, it is part of their responsibility to advise the Military Council on dealing with spiritual threats. Ghostlight Battle Opportunity. Shortly before the spring equinox, the scouts investigating what the Vicari of Tainted Basilisk are up to finally make their report. The magicians and warriors of the Druge army have been collecting arcane resources, specifically crystal mana, but also Beggar's Lie and Ambergelt across Zenith. They've barely been active in Cyclion, with most of their efforts directed at Proceres, Lustri, and Accursion. When they have been encountered in Cyclion, their raids have been particularly brutal, tearing crystals out of mana sites without any regard for the damage they might be doing to future production. The fruits of their labour are being centralised in the heart of Proceres, the ruins of what was once the Golden Cascade. When the Druze shattered the great terraced farms, they unleashed a torrent of waters that had been dammed for centuries, flooding the lowlands and transforming the entire region into a marsh. Years of dark magic and the kind of wicked land management at which the Druze excel have spread the marshes, tainting them and turning them dark and malignant. The magical wards, the enchanted fortifications the Druze raise appear to be much more vicious than the dripping echoes the Empire conjure, and over time it is almost as if the repeated enchantment has sunk it into the water and the mud, spreading a kind of slow, corrupting influence. The worst essence of the Night Realm, bloated lizards whose scales shift to mirror the hue of whatever they are hiding against, sneak up on unsuspecting travellers. Some of the twisted marsh trees are said to possess a kind of malign awareness, sending tendril-like roots out to trip and blind the unwary. Drifting lights of blue-green fire lure travellers to a slow and terrifying demise in the bottomless quagmires that were once fertile farmland. Yet it appears things could be worse, and the Tainted Basilisk plan to ensure that they are. Using the resources they have gathered, and with the support of a cadre of Tapel from the Marsh Lizard clan, Druze magicians are planning a terrible working in Proceres. As near as can be ascertained from interrogating a captured Vicari, the plan is to try and permanently taint the marshes by infusing them with a combination of night magic, venomous thorns, and vengeful beasts. Instead of raising a magical fortification in the region each season, the area will become permanently hostile to enemies of the Druze. The Orcs have done something similar to this before. Once they poisoned the forests of Holberg, and it took a great deal of time and effort to cleanse that corruption. This does not seem to be the same technique, though the effect, poisoning the swamps, will probably be quite similar. Given that it is not possible to reach Lustri or Accursion without going through Proceres, or pulling out of Zenith entirely and approaching through a different territory, which potentially creates its own problems, poisoning Proceres potentially presents a significant strategic obstacle for the Empire. What's worse, the corruption of the marshes will likely take major effort to cleanse, even if Zenith is entirely liberated from the Druze. Furthermore, it seems there is a more mystical component to what the Tainted Basilisk are doing in Proceres. If they are successful, then the magical fortresses they raise there will be even more potent and even more vicious. It's hard to nail down specifics, but the Vicari was of the opinion that the taint on the marsh and its ruins would allow them to weave wards that were twice as effective as the ones they've been previously using, and would inflict ruinous casualties on anyone who attempted to fight in Proceres. The Civil Service prognosticators indicate that there is no conjunction of the Sentinel Gate that opens near the site of the magical working itself, but they have discovered something else. The battle magicians of the Citadel Guard and the scouts of the 7th Wave mentioned that the Vicari spoke of specialists, or experts, travelling to Proceres through the woods of Lustri. The prognosticators have identified a conjunction to the former fields of resplendent twilight in northern Proceres. After further investigation, it seems there is a caravan of Druze warriors and Gulai from the Sarangrave, from the Palace of the Sleepers, moving to join the Tainted Basilisk in the heart of Proceres. They are apparently bringing with them 3 unique and mysterious components that are in some way key to the magic the Druze are trying in the Tainted Marshes. If they can be intercepted, then it will disrupt the Druze magic. Each of the Gulai intercepted, and their precious cargo, whatever it is, prevented from reaching the Druze, will reduce the enchantment of their magical fortifications it will receive when cast in Proceres. If all 3 are dealt with, that element of their magic will be unsuccessful. At the same time, the Druze are bringing a tainted marshwalker, apparently in the form of a cluster of marshlings, that serve a similar purpose to the poison beast used to poison the forests of Misericord and Utterland some years ago. If they are all intercepted and destroyed, the Druze will be unsuccessful in this attempt to poison the marshes of Proceres. The Vicari let slip that these resources represent more than a year of work in the hidden caverns beneath the Palace of the Sleepers. It will be no easy matter for the Gulai to replace them if they are destroyed.